Council's YouTube channel, so please bear that in mind. We could start the recording now. Thanks. We don't have any apologies then if everyone's here.
Don't have any, Councillor Shaw.
No. Any declarations of interest?
Yes, John, Tom Begg here. I'm
Okay,
on the RL board for item, I think it's 17 on the agenda.
Okay.
But I have no financial interest, so I'm happy to take part in the discussion.
Okay. Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, Convener. I declare an interest in item 23 as my son attends one of the providers on the framework, although it's not a financial interest, so I'll remain and take part in the meeting.
Okay. Item 17, the main works contract for the museum. The original papers that came out included the draft paper in error, so the final version of the paper was made available on Monday. It was sent out by email and made available online, so just ensure you're looking at that one. It's got some additions to the community benefits which are not on the draft paper. Okay, item 1 on the agenda is the revenue and capital.
Chair, hand up, declaration of interest.
Oh, sorry, Ian.
No, thanks. Just declare an interest in item, non-financial interest in item 24, provision of head injury support service. A member of my family works for Corriers, so I'll not take part in the decision with that item. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
So no other declarations of interest that I'm missing. Item 1 on the agenda is the revenue and capital budget monitoring report as of 8th of January. Do you have any questions? Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Perhaps you could expand on the £80,000 that's mentioned on page 3 of the papers that's been transferred from chief executives, for that purpose regarding the governance. And is that in any way related to the IT services transfer that's mentioned at the foot of the page on page 7 under ITC services?
Alistair?
Yeah, I would need to double check, Councillor Sharkey. I would think that it's the same transfer that's taken place. I'm pretty sure it's in relation to some non-recurring resource that's been transferred in from the change fund in relation to our web governance staffing post. I can double check that and confirm that to you, Councillor Sharkey.
Yeah. So it's that is the same amount that's been mentioned in both cases. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm assuming you're referring to the difference 179 and 180. I think it's just a rounding error that's in the difference between the two amounts. But I'll confirm that to you, Councillor Shaw.
Okay. Can we note the report? Item 2 on the agenda is the revenue and capital budget monitoring report council overview as of 8th of January. Do we have any questions?
John, I don't have a wee hand. I'm always waving here.
Jimmy, you need to find that hand someday.
Okay.
On you go. Yeah, on you go.
Thanks, John. It's just on item 2, the paragraph 1.5, I think it is. Let me just find it here. If I'm reading that right, John, it's projected that due to COVID, due to potential increased unemployment, there could be a serious impact on the council tax collection. And I'd like to, is that the case? And perhaps could we get maybe a wee bit more information what the projections may be? And maybe after that I can refer to 3.4 and the impact on Renfrewshire Leisure under COVID. I have to say, and this is not offered as a criticism because I know we're living in fluid times, shall we say, but like most parents and grandparents, I like to keep a progress report on my grandkids' sporting activities. And for the last few weekends, I've been travelling into various venues to watch them carrying out their sporting achievements. But what surprises me or what confuses me, and there's a number of people have asked the question as well when I was speaking to them at the weekend, is that I'm driving by council facilities that are closed and going to private facilities that we're having to pay for. And it's the same kids, the same parents, etc. So I know that Renfrewshire Leisure are taking a bit of a hit financially, but why are we keeping closed the council facilities like St James's Park, etc., KG5, all these places, and yet these same kids, I mean, the place I was at the weekend, there was kids playing football, there was young women doing gymnastics, there was women carrying out fitness classes, etc., etc., etc. Why is it happening? No, the social distancing is happening in these private facilities. Why can it not happen in the council facilities? Because, I mean, we're paying council tax for these facilities, plus we're paying an extra tax for the private facilities. I don't know if somebody can explain. Maybe I'm missing something somewhere. I assume we're all subjected to the same restrictions.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Sheridan. Alistair, do you want to come in on the council tax, or do you want to bring Rona in? Or?
Rona might have, I suppose, slightly more up-to-date information, but certainly we are anticipating that there will be under recovery in council tax in the year. Rona might have slightly more up-to-date figures, but the last I understood, and this will be obviously getting closed down over the next 2 or 3 weeks as we close the financial year down. But in-year recovery was certainly a % or 2 behind what our ordinary our kind of usual recovery rates would be. So I think we will still have an under recovery in council tax. I'm hopeful that the 2 million will be the absolute ceiling on that, but I'm not sure if Rona or potentially Alan might want to come in on that point.
Alan?
Thanks, Councillor. So yeah, I mean, what Alistair's just summarising there is the case, and just members might recall, going back to July last year when we started to try and forecast what we believe the full year impact would be on the council. We did at that point anticipate a much more significant potential impact on council tax collection levels and indeed the overall council tax budget position. That's although what we're outlining in this report and the projection at this stage is still material at around about £2 million. It's obviously significantly less than what we forecast in the early part of the year, when there was a potential expectation that the impact of unemployment might be much more significant. Obviously, the furlough scheme has run for significantly longer, and that's undoubtedly helped the situation in terms of unemployment levels, and that will have fed through in relation to our council tax collection. So there is going to be an impact. It's slightly improved. I think by the time we get to the end, it's likely to be around about 1.5% to 2% adrift of where we would normally be, and certainly our council tax reduction award levels higher than we had previously budgeted at the beginning of the financial year. But what I would say is that similar to a number of range of areas of concern from the financial projections, it has improved as we've progressed towards the year end. And indeed, in relation to Renfrewshire Leisure, and in terms of the financial projection and impact there, again, as we've moved towards the year end, that's continued to improve from the position that's outlined in this report. And again, that's reflecting, principally the furlough scheme running for a longer period than was envisaged. So, like many of the areas of pressure that were expected and forecast as part of the COVID impact, they have continued to exist and will impact on the council as we move to the year end, but their impact generally has reduced for a number of reasons.
Councillor Sheridan, I'm not sure we've got anyone from RL here that can answer the kind of operational questions, but as far as I'm aware, we are following all appropriate Scottish Government guidelines as to who can access and when we can open. So I'm not entirely sure of which facilities you're talking about, or whether it was indoor or outdoor or whatever. But as far as I'm aware, on you go. Sorry.
Outdoor.
Outdoor.
Sorry, John, I forget the name of the place, but it's down at Morrison's. Down off Lower End.
It's maybe something we can get you a briefing on after the meeting, but we don't have anybody here on the meeting who can talk to that, unfortunately.
Sorry to labour the point, John, but I'm just trying to establish what's the difference between kids going to a private and obeying all the restrictions that are there to be obeyed, and the council don't even have that opportunity. Why are we paying twice?
I think there maybe have been opportunities at Ariel properties for some of the outdoor stuff, but maybe not the stuff you're looking for. And I appreciate your point, but we'll get somebody from Ariel to drop you a note on that. Councillor Sharkey, you had your hand up, but it disappeared there.
Oh, well, I have two questions. There you are. So I'm trying to work this computer, so I hope I don't make any mistakes there. But the first question was from page 23, where it mentions the overspend. Again, it's been incurred supporting Renfrewshire Leisure, but it also says that part of that overspending reflects the cost of studies commissioned to assist in determining the impact of Renfrewshire on the Renfrewshire economy. I'm just wondering, have you seen these studies, and can we see these studies, and how much of that 0.96 or £960,000, how much of that was actually these commissions? But I'd be interested to know if you've seen them, and I would certainly be happy to see these studies that were commissioned for whatever particular cost. The second point actually comes from page 15. Earlier on today, I got an email from one of our employees, and they asked the question. They would like to know if we're getting the COVID money from the government. We've received a letter from Mrs. Bax to say that thank you for all we've done, though there was no through COVID, though no mention of the money. Right? If that's the case, it's a slap in the face for all carers, and goes on from that. But on page 15, I think it's quite clear there that it says that the government is providing confirmation on all reasonable additional costs. So can I assure my constituent that she will be, in fact, seeing some money to say thanks for what she's done through COVID?
Alistair.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to your first question, Councillor Sharkey, the studies that have been undertaken, I would need to check with the Chief Executive Service, because they were, I understand, commissioned by the Chief Executive Service, and I'm not sure of the exact cost of those, but it's certainly a very small proportion of that projected overspend. The vast majority of that overspend is reflective of the support being provided to Renfrewshire Leisure, as is outlined elsewhere in the report. In relation to your second question around the staffing, I'm assuming you mean the £500 payment to social care staff. My understanding, and again, Alan will maybe come in just to keep me right here, but my understanding is that payment will be getting made next month, and funding will be following. It's a grant payment in arrears that will be coming from the Scottish Government to the Council once the Council has made those payments to the relevant staff. Alan might want to comment on some of the detail on that one.
Alan?
Yeah. Yep, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Yeah, just following up on that. Yeah, in terms of those staff directly employed by the council, and also those who are in council employment and work within the health and social care structures, the arrangements with the government were finalised around the middle of this month, Councillor Sharkey, in relation to the Scottish Government's guidance on who they wished local government to make that payment to. That process is now been taken forward by all councils across Scotland, and this week there will be letters going out to all those staff within the council's employment who are eligible for that payment based on the Scottish Government's guidance. and the payment will be made to the staff during the May payroll runs, and that's to provide the individuals themselves with an opportunity to assess any potential impact receiving that payment may have on their own personal circumstances, particularly those staff within our workforce who may be on benefits or universal credit related payments, and giving those staff the opportunity to liaise with the respective government departments to assess whether they want to select an option to receive staged payments rather than a single payment, or indeed if they want to indicate a desire to decline the payment. So that's just an update for all members of the board.
Thanks, Alan. Councillor Hartley and Councillor Hood.
Just a request, convener, see when people are going through the papers, could you ask them if they could refer to the paragraph number rather than the page number, because I've got an electronic version and the pages don't correspond with what I've got, so could that be asked?
I think you've just done that, Councillor Hart, so I'm sure everybody's noted. Councillor Hood.
Yeah, I think it was Councillor Doig. It was before myself. I think she had her hands up.
I wouldn't want to get that one wrong. Councillor Doig.
It's just a bit of clarification. The buildings that Renfrewshire Leisure occupy and run are owned by the council, but the actual service is an arm's length organisation run by a committee that Victoria Hollows, as CEO, heads up. Now, any questions about what's happening with the services within any of the facilities that are run by RL should be directed to Victoria Hollows, and maybe questions to those that are on the committee of RL to basically take forward. But on my understanding, and I've seen it happening in several of the locations, outdoor classes have been going on for both fitness and for football, but it depends on what was the staff's qualifications for taking such things that are allowed to basically do. And it's obviously very heavily affected if the weather is bad, but I have seen them going on, and they are happening. They're not happening everywhere, but they are happening at quite a few of the different various locations. And it's just for clarification, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Doig. Councillor Hood.
Thank you. It was just a couple of wee things. First one was the place Councillor Sheridan was talking about was the pits in Paisley, and there's football games going on there practically every single night, and it's quite a busy place. And personally, I don't know how they can actually socially distance by doing that, but that's for them to do. The question I've got, and it's a sort of straight one. It's the bonus that the money's coming to the employees and the workers, is that taxed? Or is it non-taxed?
It's taxed, Councillor Hood.
I think that's a shame. I don't think that should be taxed at all. Right, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sharkey, will you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to come in and disagree with Councillor Doig when she says that we shouldn't be asking questions here about the Renfrewshire Leisure, and I think it reflects badly on them that there's no one from Renfrewshire Leisure here to answer questions when the report in front of us says that we are going to be covering the projected overspend of, as I earlier said, £960,000. If we're being asked to approve that sort of money going towards them, then they should definitely be here to answer questions like the one Councillor Sheridan asked.
Thanks, Councillor Sharkey. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Can we note the report? Item 3 on the agenda is the Chief Executive Service Delivery Plan. Do you have any questions? Do we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 4 on the agenda is Finance Resources Service Delivery Plan. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 5 is the Environment and Infrastructure Service Delivery Plan. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 6 is the FM operational performance report. Do we have any questions? We note the report.
Agreed.
Item 7 is a review of Renfrewshire Council bylaws and the employment of children. Do we have any questions? Can we agree with recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 8 is the revisions to the council existing pay and grading structure for local government employees. Do we have any questions? Can we agree with recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 9 is the people strategy, Our People, Our Futures 2021 to 26. Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Sharkey.
Thanks very much. Right, I fall foul of that almost every meeting. My apologies. What I was saying is that I do have a criticism of this, and I don't want it to be taken too strongly. But when I was reading this, I felt that I'd read it before, sometime in the 1980s, when I was involved in Shropshire negotiations myself. And there was a particular flavour on. Let me see, to help Councillor Hart, paragraph 3.5, right? It's the third bullet point where it talks about the staff being moved to in times of need to where they'll make the biggest impact. And as I was reading through the paper, I couldn't, the associated paper with it, I couldn't find those exact phrases again. But what I did find on page 177 was that we will continue to work closely with the trade unions to ensure that ideas, views, knowledge and experience of our workforce is listened to, considered and valued in our, my emphasis, our decision making. And back, as I said, from my own experience, there was always an attempt at that time to introduce something that was shorthand known as a manager's right to manage, but generally meant that it was that the right of workforce and particularly trade unions to negotiate was sucked out of the process, or at least they attempted to suck it out of the process. Right, and that's actually how I'm reading page 177 here, because you're wanting to consult, but there's no question here that there's going to be any agreement from the trade unions in my emphasis, decision making. So as I said, the document, although there's a lot of good stuff in it, does, as I say, it's very disappointing in the undertow that's there. And I think what I'm looking for is a reassurance that we're not going back to the bad old days of the 1980s, and we're not going to be telling people what to do because I wear the shirt and tie and you don't.
Raymond, do you want to go in on that?
Thank you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Sharkey, for your comments there. I can absolutely give the board reassurances that the trade unions have been involved in all the discussions and the development of this, certainly over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And we give an absolute commitment to the trade unions that they will have a voice in our decision making, and when we come to work our way through these priorities, we'll do it together. That's been a very clear message, certainly from myself and from my team. When we've been developing this with all three of our trade unions. So I hope that gives you a little bit of comfort.
I would have had a lot more comfort if I'd heard the word negotiation.
Thanks, Raymond. Thanks, Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Brown.
On item 3, background 3.5, third one down, third paragraph down, improving our approach to workforce planning. Can I ask how many people we put through college to study for proper degrees, diplomas, etc., and how many we hope to have year on year studying either for the Institute of Housing, Institute of Health, or whatever?
Is that a question you can answer, Raymond, or maybe you want to come back to Councillor Brown on that one?
Yeah, Councillor Brown, we have what's called a further education process where people will apply through their own service to be funded or part funded for kind of further education at colleges or at uni. Now that information is held centrally. I just don't have it to hand just now, but I'll be happy to come back to you with the numbers and what these subject matters are. That would help.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Councillor
Councillor Brown. Okay, can we agree the recommendations?
Agree.
Item 10 is the demolition contract award for demolition of existing buildings in the Chivas Regal site. Do we have any questions? Councillor Brown, your hand's up. Have you got a question or is it a legacy? Have you got a question, Councillor Brown? Or okay, can we agree the recommendations?
Agree.
Item 11 is electrical upgrade at St John Ogilvie Primary School. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 12 is the St Anthony's Primary external works. I don't see any questions. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 13 is the contract authorisation for the provision of a GIS system. Do we have any questions? Agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 14 is the community halls refurbishments. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 15 is the supply and delivery of 400 laptops. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 16 is a contract for Paisley to Renfrew active travel route, which will be awarded under clause 9.1J of standing orders. Do we have any questions, Councillor Sharkey?
My question is just, I'm looking for a reassurance that any works that do go ahead are not going to reduce what I would call the loading gauge. That would be the space around the permanent way as it is. I think it was referred to as Solomon in this. That should railway workings be reintroduced, that we're not going to put anything in the way that would have stopped that.
Bridget, is there someone who can answer that?
That would be a question for either Mark Higginbotham if he's here, or potentially Alistair Morrison. I'm not quite sure with the participants.
Unfortunately, neither of them are here.
Can we come back to you on that one, Councillor Sharkey?
Well, it looks as if you have to, but yes, I'm very reluctant to agree anything that would reduce the capacity to expand the rail network in the future. That was a mistake that has been made in many places in the past, and certainly one of what we needed here. But for the speed of the meeting, I'm more than happy for you to come back later and hope that I'm going to hear good news about it.
Okay, can we agree the recommendations?
John?
Agreed. Agreed.
Yep. Somebody shouting on me there.
Yeah, I'm down here in the bottom right hand corner, John.
All right. Okay. See, you've got no video, so you might be waving at me, and I'm not seeing you.
No, sorry, but John, it's just a general comment. I really don't think we as politicians, or indeed this board, do ourselves any favours when the same person just pipes up after every item, agreed. It's as if he's trying to just push things on and go on. It just doesn't do us any favours.
To be fair, Councillor Sheridan, without telepathing it to me, I'm not going to know if it's agreed, so it's good to hear that nobody's...
I think you know the point I'm making, John.
Well, okay. So we agreed the active travel route. Item 17 is the Paisley Museum reimagined main works. Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Convener. We're back here again talking about care. Given what happened before, and I'm not going to get into the detail, everybody's quite aware of the detail of that. I can't believe we're back here talking about giving care this contract. They're still in a pretty precarious financial position. They made a significant loss last year. And I know Bridget and her team have given me assurances, you know, that everyone's fine and honky-dory. But I got those assurances the last time, and look what happened. Look what happened. I mean, we did send out a warning the last time, and I've still got the same concerns. So that's a bit disappointing they're back. And given that, I mean, we started off with 16 companies showing an interest into delivering this project, and we ended up with one Kia. I just wonder how we got to that. That's one question I've got. I've been told that this meets workfare standards, Scottish Government's workfare standards. But what does that look like? I mean, they say they don't blacklist anymore. Have they shown any? Have they shown that they've mended their ways? I mean, contemporary blacklisting is currently rife throughout the industry. Have they taken on blacklisting workers, for example? Do you know, these things show, are evidence that they have changed, and they haven't done that. Do they abide by collective agreements? It's another question, which is in the public contracts regulations. How are they going to employ people? Are they going to directly employ people? Are they going to be umbrella schemes, bogus self-employment? You know the history of that. It just beggars belief that we've not got this tied in. We've got a construction charter which gets ignored, and the reason we need to get this right and tie this down to the nitty-gritty is because this company has ruined people's lives, workers, families, etc., and they've spied on people, and they can't be trusted. I'm absolutely appalled that this has happened. We're back here with Kia. It's absolutely disgraceful. And if somebody can answer that question about the 16 companies at the start and where we are now, we one left.
All right, thanks, Councillor Hart. Bridget, do you want to come into this one?
Okay. So in terms of the financial position, Councillor Hart, we are bound by Regulation 59 of the Public Contract Scotland regulations to assess the financial capability of contractors. We set what we consider to be a proportionate level for every contract that we do, and that level is based on the value and the complexity of the works. And in this case, we set turnover minimum requirements and we set a credit score minimum requirement. Both of those were exceeded by Kier. So there are no grounds under the regulations to exclude Kier from the process. They've more than met the criteria that was set. However, we do, for all strategic contracts, go over and above in terms of the monitoring and the checking. And members of Alan and Alistair's team have carried out quite robust financial checking of Kier, and the information provided hasn't flagged any immediate concerns or risks that would make us think that anything's changed during the tender evaluation period. We've continued to monitor their credit reference scores, and they fluctuated slightly, down a couple, up a couple, but there's absolutely nothing there that would give us any concern at this particular stage. Again, because this is a contract that's really important to the council, we will continue to monitor the financial position of Kier throughout the life of the contract, and that will be part of our quarterly scorecard meetings. But there are a number of alerts set up so that if anything changes, we'll get an immediate alert, which we can then raise with Kier. So that's built into the contract as part of the contract management. With regard to the work standards, fair work practices are assessed as part of our tenders. And we do use the approach to assessing fair work practices that's established by the Scottish Government, the Fair Work First criteria. And the Fair Work First criteria assesses key indicators in relation to work practices, which includes things like not using zero-hour contracts. It includes making sure that workers have an effective voice. It includes, are they an accredited living wage employer, which Kier are an accredited living wage employer. They actually scored full marks based on the information that they submitted, and they did make reference to a case back in 2009 brought by the Information Commissioner's Office, where there was the use by Kier and a number of other large construction companies of a database that was found to be not a compliant database. They settled on that one, but they've never actually been found guilty of breaching the employment blacklisting regulations. So this was a case that goes back 12 years now, but they've obviously put measures in place to mitigate and to take on board lessons learned. And based on the information that they've provided us, we're satisfied that they again, more than meet all of the criteria that we set in terms of Fair Work First. But again, that continues to be part of what we monitor as the contract is live and on site. We also would be looking to Kier to apply the same stringent conditions to their supply chain. So we would be looking to see that they pass that on down through the supply chain. So from a contract monitoring perspective, we will do all we can to make sure that they are a fair employer and that they treat their workers well.
Thanks, Bridget. Councillor Hart, do you want to come back in?
Please, yeah. I mean, I know we've been through this, Bridget, but we got that you've done all the checks and all the rest of it, but we got this before, and look what happened. It just doesn't give me any confidence in this at all whatsoever. And the reason they weren't found guilty of blacklisting is because they settled out of court like all the other big companies. But they still admitted it. They still admitted that they blacklisted people. And you know, there's a bit in the regulations that talks about they've got to show that they've made amends, and they have not done that other than, you know, settle out of court and give compensation to a few people. Thanks.
Alan, do you want to come in on this?
It was just to pick up briefly, Councillor Shaw. I think the last time that we had a discussion at the board in relation to Kier, it was just I think really tied into the Paisley Town Hall project as opposed to this particular project, and it was tied into the hub contracting arrangement, so it wasn't directly linked to Kier. But I think at that time we had some discussion that, you know, Kier as a commercial organisation were undergoing a major process of corporate restructuring and you know, reflecting you know, a change in their strategic direction to contract their organisation and focus on their main elements of their business in terms of infrastructure and construction. That continues to be progressed by the organisation, and as Bridget indicates, their financial standing and of the indicators that we would look at in relation to a company, you know, continue to be in a robust place, albeit that particular restructuring journey is a well publicised and very publicly shared restructuring journey that the company's progressing. And it's obviously been disrupted to some extent, as you know, every major commercial construction company has by the COVID pandemic. But as Bridget says, we will continue to monitor their position moving forward. There's nothing at the moment that would suggest to us that there are any immediate concerns in that particular space at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I'm not seeing any other questions. Can we agree with recommendations?
Councillor Sheridan's got his hand up again.
Oh, is he? I'm not seeing that hand up. Councillor Sheridan.
You're muted, Councillor Sheridan.
Sorry, John. Can I just make a general point, John? If you look at through all these contracts, I really don't think our negotiating team were asking for very much. If you look at what we're getting in terms of community benefits, there's not a great deal in there to write home about. And I'm reminded in the early 70s when we were building houses and we're throwing up houses and we weren't putting any facilities in place for them. And we get heavily, all of us get heavily criticised for that. And that reminds me of this, as we're handing out these contracts and all we're getting is jelly beans in return. It's not really a good benefit for communities what they're offering us.
Bridget?
Thanks, Councillor Shaw. In terms of the community benefits, the way that we ask for community benefits is, again, one of the things that comes through the sustainable procurement duty, which is set out in the Procurement Reform Act. So we tend to be sort of focusing on things which would be benefiting people who live in the communities, such as new employment opportunities, training opportunities, work experience. It's more things like that than actually, potentially building roads aligned to or building playgrounds, which are the kind of benefits that you would see as planning gain through a private development. Was that what you were meaning, Councillor Sheridan?
No, I mean benefits to the community. Giving somebody a workplace or work experience, one person work experience, for instance, is that sufficient to be awarding millions of pounds of contracts?
Well, this particular contract, you'll see that they've actually offered 4 new jobs, which is significant because the people that they will be offering the jobs to are people who've found it difficult to get into the job market. So they'll be providing an opportunity for training, for learning, for working, which will hopefully be sustained. They'll be working in partnership with Invest in Renfrewshire. So even after this particular contract's over, the experience that people will get, the skills that they'll learn, will help them into a new career path. So that is something that I think is of great value to the communities and to the individuals and to their families. Again, coming back to the point that Kier are an accredited Scottish Living Wage employer, so they'll be paid at least at the level of the Scottish Living Wage, potentially higher if they go on to qualify through a trade or a skill. The work experience placements, again, are targeted at young people who are in the SIMD 1 and 2 groups in Renfrewshire, so people who wouldn't normally get opportunities, perhaps that come more easily to others. The voluntary commitment, they're actually offering what they call the non-financial voluntary commitment to 4 local community projects. So that would be where they would put resources into helping local community projects out. So whether or not that's giving labour or whether it's giving materials, and those things they'll work at with Engage. We set the number of community benefit points for every tender based on the value of the contract and also the length of the contract. And for this particular contract, we asked for an equivalent to 160 community benefit points, and contractors can choose from a menu that we put into the tenders as to how they would like to make those points up. Kier exceeded that. They've offered a total of 230, which is well over and above what we would have asked for. So we feel that for this particular contract, we actually do have a really good mix of employability, training, education focused and voluntary and project related community benefits. So again, we're quite happy that these do represent great benefits to the local community, and I think that this is a real good news story.
I will agree to disagree, I think.
Councillor Sheridan, can I just ask, are you looking at the original papers which came out, which have draft across the page?
No.
You're looking at the updated paper, the separate one?
No, I've only got one set of papers on.
So this was the original papers that came out? Because the original set of papers came out had this, there was an error in this particular paper. So it was updated on Monday. And resent out on Monday, and there was additional community benefits on there. So I'm just wondering whether you're looking at the list that's not complete.
I haven't got it. I've only got the original.
I can send that on to you after this, Councillor Sheridan, and you can see whether it's the same one. Councillor Hart, you want to come back in?
Yes, thanks. Just on the community benefits, I wonder if you can. In there, it's got 2 modern apprenticeships. Modern apprenticeships doesn't really narrow it down to a great deal. It's, as you know, modern apprenticeships are wide-ranging and covers people,
okay,
etc., etc. So I just wonder, can we differentiate between one set of traditional apprentices? Can you extrapolate that out, if you like, and so we know how many traditional apprenticeships are going to be involved in a project?
Do you mean differentiate for this particular contract or for future contracts, so that when you see it listed in the future, you know what they're offering a modern apprenticeship for? This is a construction modern apprenticeship. This one will be a direct construction related modern apprenticeship.
So it'll be on a site related one then?
Yes.
On site. Okay. Okay, but we don't really know how to differentiate that, and it's not shown in the papers. It's better if we do that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hart. I don't see any other questions now, so can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Good in, well in there, Councillor Sheridan. Item 18 is the site supervision services for the design and construction works for CWRR project. I don't see any questions. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 19 is a contract award for 3 26-tonne refuse collection vehicles. Councillor Sharkey, you got a question?
Yes, I'm just wondering what the power plant is for these particular vehicles, bearing in mind that this council has declared a climate emergency, and I'd want to know how we're going to be fueling these vehicles.
These are traditional diesel vehicles, Councillor Sharkey. Okay.
John, could I just make a comment while we're waiting though?
Yep.
It's just, I mean, obviously these vehicles are welcome, but one of the perennial problems in Renfrewshire, indeed the whole of Scotland probably, is these trucks try to manoeuvre in and out of small streets, etc. Has that concern been taken into account when we've purchased these, that the steering is adaptable, that lets them get in and out of these tight areas?
I think these are a replacement for the same type of vehicles. So we do have smaller vehicles, Councillor Sheridan, which would do that. But Diane, is this something you can talk to?
Yeah, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Sheridan, these are a direct replacement, as Councillor Shaw has mentioned. We have got smaller vehicles which we try to use where we can, get in and out the smaller streets within Renfrewshire. But obviously, because of the kind of what they do, some of them need to be the larger vehicles. And to take the point also about the fuel, as Councillor Shaw has said, that they are diesel vehicles, because at the moment in the market there is no adequate for a vehicle that size and tonnage that works in electric capability at the moment. We're still exploring that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hood.
It was just to come in that there is actually other vehicles you can use. The hydrogen ones, the same as what Glasgow are using just now.
We are looking at that, Councillor Hood. And a like-for-like replacement with an electric vehicle for these particular refuse collections vehicles, we're looking at 3 times the price. So we're paying, I think, £518,000 or thereabouts for these 3 vehicles. It would cost us £500,000 for one electric vehicle, and it's fairly new technology at that size. There have been meetings set up with some of the suppliers that are dealing in hydrogen, and some of the other councils across the country that are also looking at this. Glasgow have just announced in the last couple of days, which I'm sure everybody's seen, but there are another 2 or 3 councils which are looking at this. So it is something we're looking to for the future. And it is something that anytime this pops up, I make the point that it would be preferable for these not to be diesel, but we're just not in that place at that time. There's also the situation out at Underwood where the charging infrastructure probably wouldn't be able to handle additional large electrical vehicles at the moment. So cost considerations here would have to be taken into account. So I don't see any other questions. So can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 20 is supply and delivery of coated roadstone. Councillor Sharkey, did you have a question on this?
Yes, it mentions the price, but it doesn't tell us the volume. Could anybody tell us how much we're buying for that?
Bridget?
I think because this is an open contract, it will just be bought in the quantities that are required at the time. So I don't think that we have a specific volume that we've committed to for this contract. I can check that for you though, but looking at the way that the contract's structured, it's structured for a value of up to. So that would be based on historical buying patterns where we'll have looked at what we've bought over previous years. And assuming that we would be buying similar quantities, we'll have gone out on that basis.
Okay, thanks, Bridget. Councillor Sharkey, you want to come back in?
Councillor Sharkey, you're muted.
Thanks very much for that. So I'm sure in the information that's going to come to me then, the price per tonne will be the information given.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 21 is a provision of adaptations and small repair service. Do we have any questions? Nope. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 22 is the early learning childcare place for Linwood Community Nursery. I don't see any questions, so can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 23 is the early learning and childcare places flexible framework. Do we have any questions? Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
And last but not least is the provision of head injury support service. I don't see any questions, so can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, folks. We'll see you next time round. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you, convener.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy Easter to everyone. You too, Audrey.